After living in Japan for more than 20 years, one moment in my classroom fundamentally changed how I think about education. So, a student of mine, a brilliant young man, he simply disappeared for 3 weeks. And when Asahi did return, he was a ghost of himself. He came to me and he quietly said that he just wasn't able to leave his home. So reading the air, I took him aside and I asked him a difficult question first. Asahi, are you okay? And are you struggling with hikikomori? He paused. Then he said that he was. Now, in that moment, I realized that I was not just a language instructor. I was a witness to a crisis of the spirit. But something else had already been happening in that classroom. You see, I had intentionally been building what I call a framework of radical hope. This is rooted in research on African American resilience. In this framework, it centers 3 powerful forces. It's community, it's identity, and it's faith. So that day, Asahi told me something that I have not forgotten. He said, you know, I realize that I'm not just a number in your class. I feel like you're in my corner. And in the weeks that followed, Asahi began to show up more than ever before. And when he did find himself slipping, he did not disappear. Instead, he emailed me asking for the homework. And he explained that he was struggling emotionally, but that he had decided that one difficult day did not have to become a long-term problem. That moment revealed something important. Sometimes the difference between isolation and resilience is whether a person feels that they belong to a community that truly believes in them. But before I go any further, I want to ask you to please do something for me. If any of the following has ever happened, would you please stand? Anyone who has been in a car accident? Yes, please. Anyone who has broken a bone? Anyone who has been through a serious or life-threatening health crisis? Anyone who has lost a loved one too soon? Anyone who has been through severe financial difficulty? Anyone who has been ostracized from a community? Anyone who has had their freedom stripped away? And take a moment and look around the room. What is the common denominator? The common denominator is problems. Thank you. You can be seated. The problems have the unique ability to cross cultural, racial, and gender borders. They do not care if you are young or old. They do not care if you have always tried to live peacefully. And they certainly do not skip you simply because you are a person of integrity. You see, this is a human map of suffering. And once we understand that, we can begin to ask a better question. What allows some people not simply to endure problems, but to metabolize them into meaning? And I want to answer this question with my own life. So this is a picture of me when I had facial paralysis. I was 24 and just beginning to etch out a career. The doctor told me that there could be an issue with my brain, and you can imagine how hearing something like this can really shake a person. Thankfully, it was caused by a bacterial infection and not a brain issue, but it still took a year to partially heal. And even to this day, my smile is still incredibly lopsided. I have experienced kidney stones not once, not twice, but 6 times. And I learned that some pain is so intense that even groaning isn't possible. And if you've ever had one, then you know that there are some pains that humble your entire body. I learned that I was in a moped accident, and I still remember the rapid succession of asphalt to sky to asphalt as I was thrown from my scooter and rolled several meters down the road. I learned that my father, he passed away a month shy of his 51st birthday from pancreatic cancer while I was across the ocean on the other side of the world and unable to do anything. I learned that my wife had miscarried a set of twins that I was ecstatic to welcome into the world. I was working in a fast food restaurant when it was robbed at gunpoint. I had a high school counselor who told me to settle for a less expensive and, in my mind, lower-level college because the more prestigious, predominantly white college that I wanted to attend was financially out of reach. I have had people stop to shout racial epithets at me. And then as a second-year graduate student, married with children, my wife collapsed because of a brain tumor. There I was. And my professors, they had no idea that this happened. They simply did what professors do. They challenged the premise of my thesis. Their critique was more piercing than ever. Again, there I am, trying to be a father to 4, carrying the responsibilities that my wife was unable to in that moment, continuing to work and remain a full-time graduate student. So how did I not break under that pressure? And yes, the pressure was indeed unbelievably heavy. The answer is not optimism. The answer is radical hope. And what is beautiful to me is that science is beginning to name what many of us in the African American community have always known: radical hope. It combats distractibility. It combats loneliness. It pushes back against negative self-talk and the slow collapse of purpose that often accompanies depression. Now, neuroscientists and psychologists, they tell us that awareness, connection, insight, and purpose are crucial pillars in reshaping emotional life. Now, my church elders may not have used the language of neuroscience, and my ancestors surviving the Middle Passage and slavery and segregation, they did not have access to modern psychology journals, but they knew something profound. If you can preserve awareness, remain connected, see beyond the lie being told about you, hold on to purpose, you can endure what was meant to destroy you. And not only endure, but you can continue to grow internally even when the outside world insists that no progress has been made. Now, to explain this further, I need to bring you into the world that formed me. I am fearfully and wonderfully made, joint heir with Jesus Christ, a royal priesthood. My heritage is richly lined with kings and queens. I am unique, No one can duplicate anything I can do, nor will I let anyone define who I am. You see, growing up black in America, my community understood that in order to raise or build character and resilience in its children, it needed to ensure that we understood the importance of faith, identity, and community. So when I say radical hope, I am not talking about vague positivity or denial. I'm talking about a way of seeing, a way of being, a way of surviving that emerges when a people facing existential threat refuse to surrender their humanity. In 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech at Barrett Junior High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, titled, "What is Your Life's Blueprint?" He told those students that the first thing in their blueprint should be a deep belief in their own dignity, worth, and somebodiness. He said, don't allow anybody to make you feel that you are nobody. But you see, that message did not begin in 1967. 50 years earlier, black Americans gathered in the silent parade of 1917 to protest lynching and anti-black violence. And 2 years before that, black churches and newspapers organized against the film Birth of a Nation. All of this happened in the face of real existential threat. So, what is the foundation of this black resilience that we continue to see both in real time and across history? Well, for me, the answer began personally. You see, radical hope had already existed in me, and that helped me to recognize what was missing. And it gave me clues about how cultural frameworks could be strengthened. Later, I asked whether this same hope had always existed in my community, and my research showed that it had, and that those three tenets of unshakable faith, deep familial and communal bonds, and identity, that they were inextricably linked. And this is where the panorama matters. Because when people face problems, they often experience life as a closed room. The problem is so immediate, it's so painful, it's so consuming that it fills the entire frame. But you see, radical hope teaches us to step back and widen the frame. Radical hope teaches us to see life as a panorama. A panorama allows us to understand that pain is real, but pain is not the whole picture. Loss is real, but loss is not the whole story. Fear is real, but fear is not the final word. When we reframe the way we see our experiences, we open ourselves to new possibilities for growth and for healing. We begin to recognize meaning, reclaim strength, and move forward with purpose. That is the power of perspective. And this is what I believe educators, leaders, parents, and communities desperately need right now. Why? Because sometimes the most important thing that a classroom can teach is not language or information. Sometimes the difference between isolation and resilience is simply this: someone who refuses to let you disappear. So here is both my invitation and my challenge to you. Reframe your life with a wider lens. Look again at the people around you. Who is disappearing in your classroom or in your family? Who is disappearing at your workplace, in your neighborhood, or even within themselves? And what might change if they encountered a community that said, "You are not a number. I am in your corner"? If radical hope has taught me anything, it's this. Resilience is not magic. It's often relational, often communal, cultural, spiritual. And when faith, community, and identity come together, people can do far more than merely endure. They can transform suffering into strength, trauma into testimony, and adversity into a new sense of purpose. So yes, problems are universal, but so is the human need to be seen, the human need for meaning, and the human need for hope. And in difficult times, my friends, hope is not childish or naive. Sometimes hope is the most intellectually honest and the most morally courageous response we can have. So refuse to let people disappear. Refuse to let yourself disappear. And build the kind of communities where people can remember their worth, reclaim their strength, and move forward with purpose. That is radical hope.